Hello and welcome back to Building 141B here at the Command Works at Bicester Heritage. Now, this weekend is pretty special for this little car here because 25 years ago, almost to the day, it was unveiled to the world. And we're very lucky because we have right here Mr. Julian Thompson, who drew it. Hello, welcome.
Yeah, hi, great to be here. Thank you very much.
This is your car, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So explain to us the process of Elise, because this must be kind of crazy. 25 years ago,
it's mad. You know, I was saying to Adam actually, I was out walking the dog on Friday, and I suddenly thought, that's 25 years. You know, I knew there were a few events going on, there's a few things in the press, but you know, I think September the 12th, that's today, is it? I think that's that is the day we pulled the covers off the car at Frankfurt Motorshow, and that was when we that launch was a bit special because Artioli's granddaughter Elisa was actually in the car, sat in the car. There's a big cover draped over it, and I think it was me and Tony Shute pulled the covers off it, and when we launched the car, and a really big moment for me then, really big moment.
So what did this represent for Lotus at the time? Because it seemed to be sort of kind of a new dawn, right?
Yeah, I mean I had to be careful because Peter Stevens is over there, and he did the car before, he did the Elan, and I worked with Peter for many years, and you know, he was my boss, and we'd done the front wheel drive. Peter had done the front wheel drive Elan, and then this, and you know, after that, you know, that car was very, very good, but it had cost the company a lot of money, and it hadn't been that strong in terms of selling. You know, it had done pretty well, but it wasn't, you know, it had been a bit overly complex, and it was probably, you know, gone away from the philosophy of Lotus a bit too much, tried to be too mainstream, if you like. It was front wheel drive, it was the best front wheel drive handling car you could get, but it didn't really capture the imagination of people. And so, you know, the years following that, there was very much a feeling that we should go back to basics, you know, back to where Lotus had come from. You know, all these philosophies from Colin Chapman about adding lightness and doing something very, very simple. It was also a time of the company when the company was split into two areas, engineering and cars, and most people had gravitated towards the engineering side of the business because that's where, you know, they could plan their careers, if you like, and the cars bit became a bit unpopular, so only the real car nuts or car geeks were left, you know, back there. So there are people like John Miles and Roger Becker, all that sort of crew were in there, really trying to do something which is really, really simple. And so that's how this car came about. The circumstances leading to it are very peculiar because we were approached by Rover at the time to do to look at extruded aluminium structures. They were looking at how they might actually replace the structure of, I think, the Discovery at the time. And so they wanted to work at this technology and think how they might actually best do that. And Lotus thought, well, we could do a little car and we could jointly share the technology. And so the extrusions and the bonded extrusions, particularly in this car, which this came about, which Lotus and Aston Martin use to this current day, is really what became sort of the building blocks of this car, and made it so light, so low cost in terms of manufacturing, and you know, so stiff and so nimble as well. So that was where it came about.
So how did you end up with this shape? Because, you know, even for the 90s, it was kind of out there and very much kind of, it was a wild thing to look at. So how did you end up sort of, especially with the Elan beforehand?
Yeah,
there
were lots of people doing sort of retro cars. You know, there were people doing things like that. We'd seen the Volkswagen Beetle. We'd seen that beautiful Mazda RX-7, which is inspired by Ferrari 250 GTO. So that was sort of a thing, you know, that sort of retro influenced cars. And at the same time, Lotus were trying to get back to Lotus. You know, they wanted to really talk Lotus to this car. So it's very appropriate to reference those sort of visual cues, if you like, going forward. So that's what this car came about. I think we are probably at the tail end of the whole retro thing. And when this car was launched, you know, as a designer, you're very nervous about, you know, when I get 25 years, the covers come off it, and you're waiting to see what journalists think and other designers think, and you want to be the big news story of the motor show as well. Unfortunately, it was the same motor show that Audi launched the original Audi TT.
That might have stolen the thunder a little bit.
And that was a really cool car, and it was very, very contemporary, very, very modern. The Bauhaus design thing, you know, I mean, that is still one of my favorite designs of all time. So for this car to go up against probably one of the other most important car of that century, if you like, of the decade, was a tough job.
This one didn't need a wing, though.
Yeah, well, it didn't.
Theirs
Yeah.
did.
It didn't. Yeah, it didn't. You know, but that was, and I think also, I think the Ferrari F50 was on that show as well. So.
I mean, that's a pretty vintage year.
Yeah, yeah, but it was, you know, I mean, you know, as a young designer, you go around the show, rushing around, seeing what the competition was, seeing how you fared, you know, and there's some skepticism about Lotus as well. Skepticism. No one had driven the car, obviously, at that point. No one knew if this chassis technology actually worked. No one knew how the whole thing came together. And you know, any car like this is a sum of the parts, isn't it? It's a sum of the how it drives, the lightness, and it all comes together. So, you know, originally, when we took this car to the board and we looked at how we might do it, we only planned on doing about 900 a year for 3 years. And we've done, obviously, yeah, no, I say we, I'm not at Lotus anymore, but they did thousands and thousands and thousands of them. And essentially the car they sell today still has this basic chassis layout. You know, and they're still using this same technology, which I developed with my colleague, Richard Rackham, who's also my best friend as well. So it's really nice.
So it's, you know, keeping it in the family.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So talk us through the design. Like how did it end up looking like this?
Well, I think we were very much influenced. I guess first and foremost of this car, really. What I was really lucky to be able to do with this car, because I developed it with Richard Rackham, who's my best friend. We were both mad keen into motorbikes at the time. We were both young, free, and single. It was before we've all got kids now, and we've got, you know, the rest of it. But at that time, we were just, you know, we were into motorbikes. We were into just cars which were just really spirited and fun. And we both had this vision about doing a car which was a bit like a motorbike. And so, you know, these ridiculously high sills, this car is impossible to get into, and it's pretty rudimentary, you know. That was okay for us because we were young, we were flexible, and we thought that was okay. And for some reason, they let us get away with it, you know. And the other thing, working with an engineer who you really feel very close to and, you know, are friends with, you can just go for every single bit of the car together. What's so special about this car is very much the layout of it, you know. It's very, very low. The cabin's very, very central. It's got, you know, lovely Coke bottle on it. The engine's in the right place, you know. All of these things can be drawn out with the engineer, myself and Richard just laying out the car just as we want it. And he'd come along and say, you know, where do you want this? Where do you want that? And I could come back to him and you know, things like this radiator, for instance, you know. This radiator which lies flat across the structure. It just sort of looks cool. And, you know, and it's pretty efficient as well. It robs you of any possible boot space in the front of the car. But, you know, me and him worked on that. And
but
we thought
if you're young, free and single, you don't need boot space.
Exactly, exactly. And I could never design a car like this now. Because, you know, my back's all given up and I'm all creaky like that. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous to have a car like that. But the cars which you can design, which are for yourself, you know, and you really believe in, that's when you get the best results. Same as you create anything. You're doing it for yourself. And you know, that's what's so great, to actually do something which you really want to do for yourself. So this is a car me and Richard really wanted to do and really believed in.
So when you look back at 25 years ago, this was unveiled. You had that moment, heart in mouth.
Yeah.
Audi TT was there, blast. Ferrari F50 was there, double blast. But if you look at the impact that this shape has had and this car has had, you know.
Yeah.
How does that make you feel? This is like a quarter of a century of influence right there.
Yeah, I mean, I think designers have funny relationships with the cars they design. You know, I always say to my designers, you know, go and buy a car you've designed. You know, don't just like throw it away, because, you know, you got to live with it and feel it and the rest of it. I was very disappointed when they replaced this car so quickly. They'd replaced this with the S2 in about 3 or 4 years. Mainly because they wanted a higher volume manufacturing system for the body. I'd left Lotus then. I was working at Volkswagen, but when I heard they were going to replace it, I was really annoyed, because I thought that's my golden moment I've been waiting for all these years, and they've done a new body on it. So I went and bought the last right-hand drive Elise, and you know, I thought I've got to have it. You know, so I bought this car, and I hated it. I felt almost like I was driving around, or just walking around in a jumper you'd made yourself, and everyone thought it was really naff. You know, it's really had that sort of feeling. And when I used to wash the car and go round it, I used to be remembered of some argument I'd lost with one of the body engineers because the fenders were too big or whatever. And so I got rid of the car very soon after that. I bought this one about 3 years ago, and this one it's settled in my mind now. I really love it. It's, you know, I've forgotten all those bad engineering memories, and you know, it's and you know, I think it's aged very, very well. You know, I like it, and it's not the old Elise anymore. It's now the classic one, and everyone loves it. And I'm very, very pleased. You know how it's gone. You know, I still get little messages all the time saying people how much they love this car, and so it's a real pleasure for me.
So looking back and knowing what you know now, what do you reckon you could have done differently? What would you tweak if you could go back in time and go, Julian, you're building something really important, but I've got some notes?
It's impossible to say, because this car is cars like this are born out of spontaneity, but also some naivety as well. You know, and that's really important, that you have, you know, and so they want to have that freshness about them, that excitement about them, and so all the things which aren't quite right about it add to its character as well. You know, you'll hear stories about, you know, how the aerodynamics got messed up, or the flow into the cabin of exhaust fumes, or how you can't get in and out of it. But you know, that's what all makes the car so special. If we'd got all those things right and sanitized it, if we spent more money on it, or had been more attention, it wouldn't have had that energy about it. And that's what, you know, that's what makes any car special, is that spontaneity. I always say that if you can design a car with 300 people, that's how big my design team is now, and you know, it takes 5 years, but it looks like you've done it in 5 minutes. That's what you want to try and do. You want to make a car that looks like you've drawn it on the back of an envelope, and some genius has created it, and there it is. You know, and that's sort of the energy you want in a design, and that's what makes something, in my mind, really timeless. You know, a car which is really poured over and really, you know, had too much attention and too much input. You know, all that energy gets lost out. So the fun thing about this is that sense of spontaneity, you know, and that comes through into very strongly, I think.
Fantastic. Julian Thompson, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for bringing your release down, and congratulations on a quarter of a century of legacy. This is fantastic.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really glad to have the opportunity to say something on this very special weekend, and good luck with your event.
Oh, thank you. Right. We have 2 more films to go. Our day is very nearly up. So stay tuned, because we're going to have one final check-in with Mr. Potbank-Culler himself. And just tiny reminder, I'm going to remind you again, because I always do, this is a charity event. If you like what you've been watching today, please don't forget to click the link below where you can donate to our 3 key charities: Mind, Mission Motorsport and Starter Motor. If you want something for your money, you're about to see what you can have in our online auction of an original Potbank-Culler artwork. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes.